What's up, everyone? It is 9:59, so we got 1 minute to go before I will begin sharing with you one of my most popular books, Hoop Kings. So Hoop Kings is a collection of poems on 12 different NBA players that I created years ago. I created this, and I think it was 2003. Let me double check, but it was years ago. Let's see. Sorry, we'll just use the time while I'm looking for this to let people check in. I see we got 3 people on so far. Yes, Hoop Kings came out 2004. Sorry, that was the very first edition. I mentioned in the description that I will be sharing some new poems from the next version of this, Hoop Kings 2.0, at the end of the video. So make sure you stay watching. So looks like we got 3 people. We got Keika again. Hello, Keika. Always love seeing you. I hope you keep joining me. I'm just going to give a couple more minutes, not necessarily a couple more minutes, but I'm going to give about a minute or two in case anybody else wants to join live. It will be recorded. And so I will archive it onto my website, not just my website, sorry, my YouTube channel. So if you don't get a chance to see me now live, you will be able to see it recorded. The benefits of it being live is that in the chat, you can talk to me. You can say, hey, why did you do this? Why did you do that? Hey, wow, I really like that. Do more like that. You can chat, make it a little more interactive, whether you're a teacher, student, parent, educator. Thank you, Adiris. I'm glad you love my stories. I love writing them. So, and I got plenty of books. This is my bookshelf, and those are my books. And we're going to be doing some more readings from plenty of the other books as the week goes on and as the days goes on. So, hang in, get ready to go. I'm going to be right back one quick second. Just make sure all my technical things are all good. And as soon as I come right back, we're going to get started. Okay. All right. It is 10 o'clock. It is 10:02 right now. So let's get going. So since this book is a collection of poems and they're not very long, so that this video doesn't end in just like 3 or 4 minutes, I'm going to be breaking down each of the poems that I do. There are 12 in the book, but I am not going to do all 12. Part of that is a licensing issue, meaning you can't just read a full book online because we want you to buy it. But at the same time, the reason I'm not going to share all of it was simply because I'm back, heck. I haven't gone anywhere. I just disappeared real quick and I'm back. But the reason I'm not sharing all of them also is just because, I don't want to just sit here and just read a bunch of poems. So what I'm going to do is give you a little backstory on the poems and a little, interaction to talk to you about how I created them. So first, the title. I have Hoop Kings, and I have the follow-up for the women, Hoop Queens, which I will be doing tomorrow. So make sure you check back in tomorrow at the same exact time, 10 o'clock, to see me doing poems from Hoop Queens. And I'll be taking questions. I'll be taking questions on both, but since this one is tomorrow, just to let you know in advance. So when I did the 2 of these, I knew that I wanted the title to be able to go across both of them. I didn't want it to be one specific title for the men and then a different title for the women. I want it to be something similar so that they can kind of always be joined together hand in hand. So I went through a lot of different variations on the title, but ultimately I wanted it to be something really simple to say and really easy to remember. So I thought of Hoop, and I kept thinking of something related to royalty, and then I just came up with Kings and Queens. So let's get started. Let's get going with Hoop Kings. Now, the fun thing about when I did both of these books, particularly Hoop Kings, is I had to figure out who were the 12 players that I was going to put in, because I didn't want it to just be players that would be remembered for 1 or 2 years. And then by the time you see the book years later, people would be like, who is that? So I had to make a point of choosing players that I figured would be remembered for a very long time. So there's 12 of them. So the first one that I'm going to do for you is definitely one that will not be forgotten, and that is Allen Iverson. So Allen Iverson is one of my favorite players, and if you are a smaller player, he's probably one of your favorite players too, even though he played years ago. So for his poem, I decided to call it By Any Means Necessary. Now, the reason that I called that is because by any means necessary is a phrase that was often spoken by Malcolm X, who was often viewed as a controversial Black leader. Now, when Allen Iverson came into the league, he was viewed as quite controversial. He had the cornrows, he had a very street type of attitude in the way he carried himself, the way he dressed, and the way he played his game. And that drew a lot of people to actually love him. But at the same time, it also made a lot of people hate him. So he was pretty divisive in that regard. But over the years, since his long retirement, he is still a beloved player by current players and young basketball players because his style is so much fun to watch. And this poem was so much fun to write. So I hope you enjoy it. By any means necessary. Crooked cornrows cause chaotic and catastrophic collisions with precision. Your mission and goal, put the ball in the hole, using lightning quick speed and total body control. Tattooed warrior, sinking shots legendary, putting up points by any means necessary. Crossover is nice. Defenses get sliced like cheese. Opponents freeze as you do what you please with ease, like step back and drain threes or blow into the lane like a hurricane breeze. No fear, no shame, drives your 165-pound body and 6-foot frame like a lightning bug zigzagging that can't be contained. Your name draws defenders like moths to a flame and scorches opponents with heat all the same. That was Allen Iverson. So let's continue on. So Allen Iverson was one player that is still reminiscent of, or still very popular because he's still in the public eye and his game was so unique. But there are other players in here that at the time they were doing really well. And now not so much, like not in terms of not doing very well, but they just don't have the same profile as some of the other players. One of those players is Steve Francis. So Steve Francis, his nickname was Franchise, Stevie Franchise. So I centered it around that. And one of the things that people would often say to describe his game is they would say, oh man, he's so ill. He's so ill. Well, ill, the true definition of ill means sick. And they would say he's so ill because his game was so sick. So I decided to call Steve's game, his poem, Ill at Will, and call his style of play the franchise flu. Because when you played against him, he was so sick that he was so ill. And so thinking about that, one of the things that I decided to really do is focus on what makes you sick. Now, the reason that I decided to include this poem today is because as of this taping on April 20th in 2020, most people are in a stay-at-home order. We can't go out because of a pandemic going on in the world right now, which is so hard to believe, but it is going on in the world. And basically, the way that we battle this virus is by just simply staying away from each other. And it has characteristics of the flu, but it's its own thing. So Steve's poem is really about him basically causing the flu in his opponents. So I used all of the different terms and different ways you would feel if you had the flu to describe his game. So as I'm reading this poem, just take a listen to some of the things that come from the physical descriptions of having the flu. Ill at will. Ill skills cause shakes, shivers, and chills from crossover thrills with the pill when the franchise flu strikes. Fever-induced heat wears out ligaments and feet, causing cough-ups on D when the franchise flu strikes. Infectious dunks over 7-foot chumps cause aches and pains and muscular strains when the franchise flu strikes. Mind-numbing, throat-soaring, outrageously sick game of Steve Francis spreads contagiously quick when the franchise flu strikes. So as you can see, I equate his game to the flu. All right, let's continue. I got a couple more. The next one is not so much a long form poem as it is a visual, because the visuals that were done for Hoop Kings include photographs. Now, even though I am a photographer, they are not my photographs. What we did is we used photographs that were taken of the NBA players throughout the course of the season. And then what we did is we photoshopped them, manipulated them to basically take out the background and just focus on the player and then make it look very unique. So in the case of Shaquille O'Neal, we decided to get very creative. Now, we know that Shaq is a really big guy, so there's no point in me writing a really long poem to tell you that he's a really big guy. So instead, what I decided to focus on was his name, since he has such a unique name. Now, I'm going to show the poem here, okay? So as you can see, there's a fold out, and there's his shoe. And his poem reads very simply, superhuman atomic quake. 4 simple words that paint a big visual picture of what Shaq is all about. Now, ultimately, that's the essence of what poetry is all about. Poetry is not about big words or fancy words or even rhyming words. Poetry is simply about the right words. And if it only takes you 4 words to say what you need to say, then you did your job as a poet. Now, when it came time to visually represent Shaq, that's when we decided to show you how big he is by showing a life-size picture of his shoe. Now, I am at my house, and so you don't really know how big this book is. But as you can see, it's not small. You know, it's actually a pretty good size. It's about a regular person's foot. But his foot was so big that it wouldn't fit over just the 2 pages. So we had to add, we had to add an extra page to hold his shoe. And that's because Shaq's shoe size is 22. 22. How about that? Super big. Now, it's kind of hard to tell how big it is, but you'll only see this picture in the hardcover edition of the book. I also have a paperback, I have a paperback, but the paperback is much smaller, as you can see. And so the only thing that, and the only thing that fits in the paperback is just his toe because it's smaller. Now, the cool thing is that I travel all over the place. And one of the things that I've often shown when I speak in schools and I travel is I was speaking at a school years ago in Boston. And upon finishing talking about Hoop Kings, and it just basically the end of the presentation, some teachers came up to me and they said, hey, you know, Shaq retired here in Boston, and he did a fundraiser with us with a local shoe company. And they asked me, they said, would you like to see the shoes? And I'm like, sure, that sounds really cool. So they broke out the shoes, they came and showed them to me, and I was like, wow, that's ridiculous, that's so big. And then I handed them back to them and they said, no, you take that. So they gave me Shaq's size 22 shoe. Now, that might be a little hard to figure out how big it is, but as you can see, I'm not a small guy. I work out all the time, so I'm pretty big. This goes all the way across my chest. That gives you an idea, because I know how hard it may be to see the scale and stuff, but that gives you an idea how big it is. And that's how wide it is. That is Shaq's size 22 shoe. And that's one of the fun things that I enjoyed about doing Hoop Kings, was getting to do stuff like that. So moving on. So we're already at the last poem. So the last poem features somebody, sadly, who is no longer with us, who died definitely too soon. And that is Mr. Kobe Bryant, the Mamba himself. Now, when I came up with the idea for Kobe's poem, when he first came into the league, he came right out of high school, which was rare because not many people were doing that. And the few that did it were very good, and he was one of them. But when he came out, we learned a lot of unique things about him, that he was a very unique person. He was raised mostly in Italy because his father played professionally there. He was interested in different things that other players weren't interested in. And he made it a point of letting people know the creative endeavors that he enjoyed and liked to participate in, speaking multiple languages, and then, of course, now that we've seen right after his death, we've seen that he's written books. He's did a movie, which he won an Oscar for. We got to see a variety of his creative talents. So this one is called The Creator. Creative and cool, confident moves paint basketball masterpieces from hip-hop grooves on hardwood canvas using bold brushstrokes of a bouncing ball. Quicksilver spins blur into indigo jump shots accented by purple dribble drives, splashed with high-flying, heart-stopping, eye-popping, jaw-dropping, gravity-defying, fiery red dunks that pump loud into the crowd. When KB breaks out his palette to skywalk on clouds, becoming the posterizer, point emphasizer, the hurry up and hustle back shot vaporizer, crowd energizer, in the air improviser, serving up sizzling shake and bake appetizers, sketching out masterpieces with the touch of an artist's hand, using the ball as his paintbrush, KB's always in command. So I had a lot of fun writing that one, and I had a lot of fun writing the book. And at the end, we have some poem notes on basically what I was just talking to you about. And that was simply telling you where the ideas came from when it came time to write about these great players. Now, like I said, Hoop Kings came out in 2004. That's a full 16 years ago. And obviously, a lot of players have come and gone. And over the years, when I've spoken about this book in schools, a lot of kids will say, hey, where's so-and-so? Hey, where's so-and-so? Hey, where's so-and-so? And that's because these players had retired by that point, and there were new players. So I always knew I wanted to do a follow-up to Hoop Kings, so I did when I did Hoop Kings 2.0. Now, in case you're wondering, like, hey, I haven't seen it. Where is it? Well, it's not out yet. It won't be out until 2021. And when it does come out, it's going to feature the same format, just different players. So I have the book right here. I have not the book, but I have the words that I've typed up, all the poems and such right here. I'm going to go through you, let you know the names who will be in the book. And then I'm going to share 3 poems with you, 3 poems. So make sure you check it out. All right. So let's go through who's in the book. So we got Steph Curry, one of my favorites. Kyrie Irving, one of my son's favorites. Giannis Antetokounmpo, Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant, Anthony Davis, Luka Doncic, Blake Griffin, Joel Embiid, James Harden, Paul George, and last but not least, LeBron James. That's the one that everybody's been wanting. And I have to say that of all of the poems that I did for both of these books, LeBron James is the one that I'm the most excited about because it was so much fun to write. And I know I'm going to have so much fun performing it when I speak in schools. So with that, let's get to the 3 new poems. So the first one I'm going to do is one of my personal favorite players, Steph Curry. Now, for Steph Curry's poem, what I decided when I sat down to write his poem, what I was thinking about is his game. The first thing that I ever do when I sit down to write about a player is I think about their style of play, more so than them. Sometimes the personality trumps the player in terms of the way that they play, and sometimes it's the other way around. And that was the case with Steph Curry because he's not a very loud player. He does some unique things on the court, but for the most part, he lets his game speak for itself. And since he has so many skills that he brings to the table, as I started writing, I was like, man, he's just got too many names. And so I hit upon it. That'll be the name of his poem, Too Many Names. So here we go. Stepping on the court, representing number 30, honoring his dad, the baby face, Steph Curry, human highlight every night in a hurry, Steph Curry, chameleon, changing up his game, shooting, passing, scoring, taking on many names, the chef, the technician, the maestro, the magician, the video game character with dead-eye precision, slippery Steph with the ball going left, with the skip, with the slip, with the shimmy, with the dip, with the hesitation to the finger roll flip, the whirling dervish, impervious to defenders, sending opponents home with buzzer-beating finishers, the warrior with an eagle eye, lock in from long distance anytime and let it fly, with the thick flick of the wrist, touch twine, point to sky, The chef cooking with the spice in his game, with the fire in his heart, with the ice in his veins, feeds crowds with the mouthful of too many names. So that's Steph Curry. All right. The next one is my son's favorite player, Kyrie Irving. Now, I was really excited to do this one because with Kyrie, one thing that I noticed as I watched him play, and that's basically how I write the poems. I just spend a lot of time watching each player play. And the biggest thing that I got out of Kyrie when I watched him play was the fact that he was kind of a magician with the ball. He could do whatever he wanted with it. He could make the ball go over here while you're going over there. He could make it look like he's going over there while he goes over here. So he was very deceptive with the way that he played, kind of like a magician with the ball. So I called his poem, The Amazing Kyrie. Step right up, step up to see the magician with the ball, the amazing Kyrie. Keep your eyes on the ball, keep your eyes on Kyrie. Now you see him, now you don't. Do you trust what you see? One defender, two defender, three defenders stand before Kyrie as he performs sleight of hand. Can Kyrie escape the three-man wall? Can Kyrie escape to score the basketball? Step left, cross right, cross back, out of sight, past defenders, behind the back. Take it strong to the rack. Defender falls with a crack. Now for the grand finale. Such a sight to see. Can Kyrie go coast to coast to victory? Dribble slow, crossover, then go faster and faster. Kyrie dribbling, crossing and turning and swerving and spinning until Kyrie comes to a stop behind his three-point line, then lets it pop with no time left as the ball drops, giving his team a victory from the magical hand of the amazing Kyrie. All right, that is Kyrie. So the last one is a player who has gotten better and better and better and better and better every year until he's been the MVP last year. And there's talk of him being the MVP in this current year of 2020, even though the season has been suspended. And that is Giannis Antetokounmpo. Now, I'll be honest, when I first was going to start writing him, I was on the fence about including him because this was about a year and a half ago. And like I said, he's gotten better and better every year, maybe not even every year, like almost every month. And so at the time when I was thinking about writing about him, one of the concern was that people don't know how to pronounce his name. Now, that seems like a little thing, but when you have such a unique name, unless if your play is such that people want to learn your name, it can work against you. And his play became such that people did want to learn his name. Now, one of the things that's unique about Giannis is that he is originally from Nigeria, but he was raised in Greece. So I have a book that I did, which I will be doing a live reading on Thursday at the same time, Thursday the 23rd at 10 a.m. This book, The Mighty 12, which focuses on the Greek gods and goddesses in mythology. And since Giannis is from Greece and raised in Greece, I decided to connect him with the Greek gods and goddesses of mythology. So his is called The Mighty. Blessed by the gods with warrior gifts, a mortal rises to become the mighty Giannis. Feet of Hermes, vision of Artemis, artistry of Apollo, strength of Hephaestus, cool, confident, calm demeanor, and warrior spirit of the goddess Athena. Rage of Ares, power of Poseidon, the mighty Giannis strikes like Zeus with lightning. So that's it. That's all of them. Now, one of the cool things about when I did Giannis's poem, and one of the things that I'm sure people are going to ask me about, is they're going to say, well, you did gods and goddesses, but he's a guy. Why would you use goddesses? Well, because goddesses have great power, just like the gods do. And some of the skill set that he has comes from goddesses, not just gods. Like his warrior mentality is actually more like Athena than Ares. Ares is just basically a bloodthirsty bully. He's not the good side of, I'm not going to say the good side of war because there is no good side of war, but he's not the intelligent, intellectual warrior that Athena is, which is why I related to her. So that is all of them. I hope you enjoyed Hoop Kings today. Be sure to join me for Hoop Queens tomorrow. Unfortunately, there is no Hoop Queens 2.0, so I can only talk about Hoop Queens. But again, I'll basically do the same thing I did today, break down some of the poems, give a little read aloud performance, and if we got a bigger audience, I'll take some questions. So that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed it, and make sure you check out the next one coming soon.